At long last, we are given the origin story to Shigaraki, a person that is destined to be the number one villain. Just as how Izuku had his origin story and he was set on a path to become the number one hero, obviously there needs to be someone on the opposing side, and that is where Shigaraki comes in. And this is something that has always been displayed throughout My Hero Academia. If you trace it back to the very beginning of the story, we have always seen where Shigaraki is progressing alongside of Izuku. Even though he didn't have as much panel time as Izuku, he was still someone always progressing, learning, and trying to become a better villain to fight for his ideals for what he wants. And now, we finally got insight to why he acts like he does, who he is, and what he is actually potentially fighting for. So, I just want to say first things first, that this is a hell of a good episode of My Hero Academia. Is it perfect? No. But, I will say, in terms of everything I've seen from all of this season of My Hero Academia, and even some of the last season, this is a really, hands down, good episode of the anime. And I feel like it got the emotion across properly, it got what you should feel when it comes to Shigaraki, and, how you should feel about the family. I feel like everything about this episode was indeed good. The only thing that was weak, in my personal opinion, was the spinner stuff, and I will talk about that in a moment. But overall, when it comes to everything else, this is a solid episode of My Hero Academia, and I really could not ask for much more, because even though I knew there was going to be censorship, they managed to skirt around that censorship to such a degree that I'm really not bothered by it whatsoever. And let's actually talk about that first. So, let's be real, okay? Shigaraki's quirk, destruction, decay, whatever term you want to throw to it, it is a deadly quirk. And we know when he puts 5 fingers on something, it decays, it destroys. We've seen this, we've seen it, and we see it in this episode of what happens to his family. Obviously, Studio Bones, they cannot show the whole thing. They can't show the actual graphic detail that was actually in the manga. I never expected them to be able to show every little bit in detail because of just how it is. That's just how censorship works in Japan. They can't do anything about it. It's not necessarily their fault. So because of that, they did the best that they could. First, what they showcased was that with their own way of censorship was looking like they kind of started to decay and to turn to stone, and then they crumbled away. But when that scene disappeared, you see on the ground chunks, which it's like, whoa, just to be able to show that alone was something that was shocking. And I feel like by the way that was structured, by the way they kind of drew that art and stuff for the episode, that when the BDs come out from My Hero Academia, they're probably going to change that stone look into actually what it looked like in the manga. That is my assumption, because it's just like, there's just too much detail once they crumble away, especially for the dog or Hana, etc., for them to, put that stone look and then do that. It's like, that's obvious intentional censorship, and that they're probably wanting to fix that when the BDs come out. So, I am looking forward to the BDs. I really do think that they're going to actually go full all in with Shigaraki's backstory and amplify it even to a higher degree than it was with this episode airing. But, besides the censorship, let's actually talk about artwork. So, I feel like the big complaint I'm going to see people have with this episode of My Hero is the artwork. However, personally, to me, I like the artwork, and I'm going to use the argument I have always used when it comes to anime. You see, when it comes to the medium of manga and anime, they are going to be some differences. Yes, I am aware of some slight differences. For instance, when a mangaka writes a chapter, they're able to put a lot more time and effort into a panel. It's a single frame. While you have an anime, it's a constant motion. It's always moving. So, the animators don't have time to put the same amount of level of effort as a mangaka would for just one individual panel. So, if you were to put, let's say, side by side, 2 different images of Shigaraki from the manga and from the anime, obviously the manga will look superior, hands down. It's how it's going to be. That's always how it's going to be for almost any anime. There's rare exceptions, but for the most part, you're always going to have it to where the manga, at least for a certain individual frame in the artwork of a frame, the manga is probably going to be superior. But that's not the point. When it comes to how fluid the episode was, I feel like it rose above the manga, and it really gave a lot of life to what happened in the manga. And that's exactly what I want when I watch an anime. The big thing that I always want is that the anime elevates the manga, and because of the voice acting, because of the music, because of the overall expressions, and you could feel the anger in Shigaraki's voice, it was something that really sparked that same emotion, that same vibe I had when I first read these chapters in the manga. So, like I said, I could not ask for anything else. I really love this episode. But let's actually get into the core content. What happened and exactly what is going on with Shigaraki. So, the origin of Shigaraki is obviously very dark, and it really paints a sad picture. Something that has been constantly brought up time and time again in My Hero Academia is that not everybody is lucky. Not everybody has the potential possibility of being a hero, even if they want to be. We have seen many examples. Gentle is someone that wanted to be a hero, and we saw what happened to him. We've seen how other heroes, like Izuku, how he had no quirk, but was lucky to get one for all. And we see many different examples of this. And when you look at Shigaraki, he's in a very similar circumstance. He was someone that wanted to be a hero. He says it himself in the episode, in the flashback, that he wanted to be a hero. But because of what quirk he had, because of how it awakened, everything was set against him. And because of that, it put him down a course to where he became what he is today. And it's sad. It's really sad because it shows just how the world of My Hero Academia works, and how someone can be so innocent, so nice, naive, but because of their quirk and because of how it awakens, it can completely destroy their life to the point that there is no going back to those happy days. That's what happened to Shigaraki. It was no coming back. At that point, when he got rid of his sister accidentally, and then the dog, and then what happened to his mother when he didn't even try to do it, it was enough to say there was just no coming back. There was nothing, because he already committed something so bad. It's like, what could he do about it? And that's sad, because there was nothing that could have been done. And it shows how devastating quirks can be when they awaken, and how dangerous like someone like Eri is, that we've seen how her quirk is and what she did to her family. And we've seen what she did when she accidentally put her hands on her parents and disappeared. So that's the same type of circumstance here, is that Shigaraki went through something very awful, and that's why he is like he is now. And also, the nature of the quirk kind of represents their personality. It's an extension of their personality. And that's kind of what this episode, or at least Redestro, tries to convey to Shigaraki, but us as the audience, is that, some people, they are born with a quirk, like for instance Redestro's quirk, that's like stress, and because of that quirk, it can do effects to your body. We've seen how quirks have negative effects, and Redestro points out, like, why do you think my hair looks like it does? Why do you think I look like I have thinning hair, and why do you think that I'm just like, I'm going bald? It's because my quirk is literally supposed to be about stress. I boil up inside and have stress just build, and then, I lose hair because of it. So you get to see how Redestro's quirk has affected him negatively. And he was basically kind of conveying that to Shigaraki. Your quirk is destruction, so your personality is destruction. That's what you are. And so when he asked the question, what do you want? What do you want to build? Like, obviously, you can't just be like a ruler of all villains and all that if you just want destruction. What else do you want? And Shigaraki's like, no, all I want is destruction. And basically, it's his own personality that has affected him to such a degree. His quirk is an extension of that, and it would explain his itching on his face, because he was not using his quirk, because he was not potentially destroying things. That itchiness and that allergies he had was that irritation which built up, and we saw how it lashed out. Destruction around him. And because we got to go by his words, he said himself, when he got rid of his father, the itch disappeared, which meant that his personality, things he was holding back, finally just came out of him, and he was completely fine after that point. But we have seen many different occasions throughout the journey of My Hero where he's also itched many times with his different encounters with heroes, villains, whatever. He's done that, which basically explains that it's not fully gone, but things that irritate him, he wants to destroy. That's what the itch basically means. He needs to get rid of it. So, that gives us a lot of insight to his character, and this is why I think so many love this arc, at least myself, why I love My Villain Academia, because it humanized Shigaraki. It humanized our villains. For instance, twice, Toga, now Shigaraki, and Spinner, all of them have been humanized to a certain degree to where you're now like, man, if the situation was slightly different, they would not be on this side. It's just one bad day. All it takes is one bad day, and everything goes to hell. And we saw, Shigaraki's one bad day. His one bad day resulted in him being where he's at right now within the story. So, yeah, that's something that needed to be pointed out. But let's actually talk about his father for a second. So, Shigaraki's father is a very interesting and complex man. I feel like many are going to be quick to say he's evil. And yes, for good reason. I feel like, Shigaraki's father was not a good father by any means. Definitely. Hands down. And the thing is, though, I feel like people are going to be quick to just say he's evil, but not really understand some of the circumstances that were around him to make him like he is. And it shows the overall tragedy of the entire family dynamic that Shigaraki grew up in. So to kind of explain this, we get to see briefly, which was the same amount of time as how the manga did it, that you got this family that obviously is trying to be happy, but obviously there is a lot of problems underneath. And you see that, Shigaraki wants to be a hero, but his father is like, no, you cannot be a hero. Heroes bring tragedy, they bring sadness to the family, so you should not be a hero. And he was basically trying to give a wake-up call to Shigaraki saying, hey, you don't have a quirk yet, so because of that, you should just give up. And so it's a very similar circumstance to how Izuku was. If you remember, Izuku didn't have a quirk throughout his entire childhood, to a very long time, but thanks to his mother's support, always supporting him, he was able to actually still be how he was, and eventually, one day, he got to achieve his dream, thanks to his supporting, caring family. But Shigaraki clearly did not have that. He did not have a family to say, it's okay. It's okay to be a hero. It's okay to want to dream and be what you want to be. Shigaraki didn't have that. He was a kid, but he didn't have anyone in his life to give him the same support that Izuku's mother gave him. So, when the father was constantly berating him, putting him down, etc., he was speaking from experiences as an adult, but obviously a kid Shigaraki's age doesn't care about the adult world. He doesn't care about what adults think. He just cared because he wanted to be a hero. He wanted to, dream and be like his idol. Be a great hero to save people. But obviously, the reality shot him down. And that's the point here, is that because of Shigaraki's father's upbringing, it resulted in Shigaraki's upbringing, which led to the events of everything going on within the story. So if we trace back the whole issue, it goes back to Nana, one of the original One For All users, the one before All Might. And Nana, as a parent, we can clearly see she tried to be a parent, but she decided to choose her duties as a hero and One For All over her family, which in turn isolated her son and eventually made him hate heroes to such a degree that he did not want his actual children to become heroes. So you can kind of say that the greatest good created the greatest villain. And just like how All For One created One For All just now created Shigaraki. So that's the point I'm getting at, is that villains make heroes, heroes make villains. It's always a back and forth. They always are constantly creating each other. And thanks to goodwill and trying to do the right thing, it is the very reason why Shigaraki was born as a villain. So, it's just a very fascinating arc, and I love what it does for Shigaraki's character, and I like how Studio Bones really did go in and they gave us the context that we actually needed. So let's talk about Spinner. I feel like many anime onlys are not really going to care too much about Spinner this episode, for good reason, honestly, because with the whole rearrangement and skipping of Spinner's overall development and narration at the beginning of MVA, with him going to the mansion and talking about a group that was basically really, prejudiced against people like him, it cut out a huge portion of characterization and development for Spinner, and I feel like the way everything comes across in this episode just quickly throws it in your face about Spinner's character, and you don't have enough time to really analyze it and think about it, because as soon as Spinner's stuff is done, we move into Shigaraki and Redestro, and let's be honest, is way more interesting looking than anything that was going on with Spinner in the episode. So I feel like Spinner completely just gets thrown to the side and pushed under the rug in comparison to everything else going on. He's a character that obviously got majorly, destroyed this arc in terms of anime adaptation, which makes me absolutely sad, because Spinner is a great character, and to kind of explain, he's a character that doesn't have anything crazy, no, inspiring objective or goal. He's just someone that is a follower. He's someone that just, looks at the greatest thing, a bandwagon, and he jumps on board. He basically tries to explain this with, Stain. It's like he looked at Stain, he jumped on the bandwagon of Stain, and that's why he became a fanboy. And now he's looking at Shigaraki, and he's basically like, you know what? I'm interested in what Shigaraki wants to fight for, and I'm jumping on his bandwagon. And it's like, is there anything wrong with that? Everybody's like that. Is there anything wrong? He doesn't have anything crazy or noble or inspiring. He's just a bandwagoner. And I feel like that makes him very human, and I love his character for that as well, just as like I like the other League of Villain characters. And as I said, I feel like his character got majorly shafted because there wasn't a lot of narration and build-up with his character in the early stages of NVA's anime, because, like I said, skipped. So, if there's one weak part about this episode, it's indeed that. But everything else, I think, is relatively good, and I really don't have any complaints whatsoever. So, I guess I'm just gonna leave it at that. But anyways, guys, if you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click that bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.